Great. We are now recording. So welcome everybody at 6:05. This is the Executive Committee of Manhattan Community Board 1. Lucian, you can move straight to the agenda. We've got a couple items on the agenda tonight. Since Mike Lavery with his entire team is here now, we're going to toss things up a little bit so they don't have to sit through the entire meeting. We want to welcome Mike Lavery and the team from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to review the work that's going to be done at Kowski Plaza, Esplanade, where the volleyball courts are, and the barge placement. So
thank you all, if you can hear me. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate being able to come in front of your committee. We do have work over at Battery Park City. We're going to take you through. One of our members, Kevin Finnegan, is having a little trouble getting on. So my colleague Tim Yan will go through the presentation until Kevin can jump on. We also have Ted Giggini from the World Trade Center Department as well on in the corner. If you're okay, Tammy and committee will bring up the presentation and we'll just get right started. And then Tim, can you start to bring that up?
Yeah, let's make Tim a presenter so he can roll with the presentation.
Good to go. Tim, fire will.
Sure. Let me just give Kevin another minute. My colleague Kevin, he's I think still stuck in the.
Yeah, I'll work with Tim. Tim, if you go ahead and start.
Okay, sure.
And then just continue through until he can jump on.
Okay. Okay, let me share my screen. Share. Okay, so our project is the River Water Pump Station sluice gates replacement. This is just a background slide and a photo of the area that we're going to be working in. To the left-hand side is the marina. This is right behind Brookfield over here. There's a small garden here. And right on top of Kowski Plaza, there is, right below, sorry about that, there's a river water pump station below here, and then the residential building here. So there's actually our facility, World Trade Center facility, actually intakes water from the Hudson River, and it uses this water to provide cooling for the World Trade Center public facilities. An objective of this project is to remove some sediment from the intake of these tunnels. There's 2 tunnels that intake water into the facility right below the volleyball courts. And also we are going to replace 5 big water gates and also replace a bar rack right in front of the intake tunnels to protect any kind of debris that might go into the facility and also protect the wildlife within the river. So our scope actually is divided into 2 areas. One area is the river work in the river, and the other area is land work on Kowski Plaza. So in April, there's going to be a barge that will come in and sit right along the marina. This is used for a dive survey that we're going to be doing some preparation work. And then in September is going to start the dredging, which is the settlement removal from the tunnel intakes. On the land, in July, we're going to be starting the site mobilization, getting ready, and then it's in September, we're actually going to be doing the demolition and replacement of the water gates. So that's the background of this project. I'll go to the next slide.
And I think we have Kevin on now.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay.
Had a
No
few
problem.
difficulties.
No worries.
Okay, hello, everybody. Okay, so as Tim said, we'll start mobilizing on the land in July, but first we have to mobilize the barges for the wet work. So starting later this month, next week, we'd like to start placing a mooring field so we can anchor a barge out in the river. It'll be adjacent to the esplanade, but not touching the esplanade. You can see the size of the barge. It'd be to do some dive surveys, but more importantly, be measuring the inside of the tunnel so we can block off the water eventually with a temporary bulkhead. That's part of our critical path. We need to do that as soon as possible. It takes roughly 26 weeks to manufacture the temporary bulkhead. So as the chart says, the barge will remain throughout the course of the work. There will be a short period of downtime from June until July. Hours of operation are only daytime hours, 8 to 4. There really shouldn't be any noise, and the esplanade will not be affected. Next slide, Tim.
Yep.
Okay, so starting in August, when we prepare for the wet work, again, Tim probably mentioned the New York State DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers only allow what they consider wet work, which is what we'll be doing between September 1 and January 14th. So towards the end of August, the rest of another barge and the 2 scows will come in, and then dredging will start taking place September, and the dredging will be complete for both tunnels in January of 24. The barge that's in yellow will remain. That's the one that comes in in a couple weeks. Work is only between 8 and 4 o'clock. Shouldn't really be any noise, but if there is any noise, we're directing any of the noise out towards the river, and we'll cover it later. The contractor is forced to hire a independent noise consultant who will be monitoring any noise anyway. If there is any noise, they'll have to take steps to mitigate any noise that's above unacceptable limits. Next slide. Okay, so now on the land, the dredging takes place below the volleyball courts, so you won't see any of that. It does not affect the volleyball courts at all. Tim has that highlighted in red. The second label, intake tunnels below, they're below the playground, a little bit further east of the playground. And then the pump station is actually below Kowski Plaza. So mobilization on the land will take place towards the end of July. It's about the last week of July to get ready for September work. We're going to be replacing the existing water gates, we call them sluice gates. The north tunnel gates will start. We're going to start on the north tunnel first. It'll take about 9 months. They'll start in September. The south tunnel takes a little bit longer. That'll start in July of 2024. And then the final cleanup, the demobilization will be complete in July of 25. Next slide, we'll get into a little bit more detail. Okay, so as we stated, the mobilization is going to start in July of 23. Tim's highlighted that the playground and the dog run are not going to be impacted. We're going to maintain pedestrian access throughout the course of the project, and the hours of operation are between 8 and 4 o'clock. Minimal noise anticipated. Again, we'll have a noise consultant that'll be monitoring any noise. So initially from July until we get into the next slide, so you can see the impact. We'll have 2 trailers and then a little bit of space. Then when we actually start doing the work below ground, we have to take up a little bit more of Kowski Plaza. So you see the fence line will be expanded. Tim's highlighted where the one gantry crane, it's a hoist. Picture just 2 tripods with a beam going across, so it's a minimal crane impact. Would be located in a couple different areas. We're going to start expanding this footprint in November. Unfortunately, the impact to the dog run is the only impact that we'll have is the second egress, the easternmost egress from the dog park will be impacted. So there will only be one exit from the dog run at this point in time during this work. There will be another hoist that'll be right over in that area, so we can't have people walking there. There'll also be, that's where the hoist will be, and also where the laydown areas for the actual gates. So that's the impact. That's the worst time frame for any impacts to residents. Again, day shift only 8 to 4. Duration is about 9 months. And as stated before, the noise will be monitored. If there's any operations that start to get noisy, we'll stop them, and they'll have to mitigate any noise. Not any noise above the threshold limits that we dictated to the contractor. Next slide, Tim.
Okay.
Okay, so after we're done with the north tunnel, we move over to the south tunnel. And I'm sorry, Tim, if you can go back to that slide, one last thing I
sure.
wanted to point out. On the lower portion of the slide, you see that long green arrow. So pedestrians will be able to walk and access both the dog run and the playground through there. They can go straight out to the Esplanade. So that'll be maintained so pedestrians can go right through. So people from the Kumon and the nursery school will have access to the playground. Okay, now you can go, Tim.
Yep.
All right, so then when we done with the north tunnel, we move to our south tunnel, and the fence line, we shrunk it as much as possible and moved that further south. One thing of note is the red arrow that's at the top of the screen. There is one section, not the whole section, just one section of the concrete benches and planter that has to be removed. We have to install a level sensor, but what that allows us to do then is, instead of putting that back in right away, what we'll do is we'll keep that section of planter out, and that way people can access the ramp and go to the playground directly from the Esplanade. Otherwise, they would just have to be able to use the steps. Both exits to the dog run are now open. We're showing the trailers remaining there. We'll work with Battery Park City Authority. If we need to move the trailers to maintain pedestrian access, we will. Hopefully, where we have it situated there will allow enough pedestrian access, but we'll work with Battery Park City Authority. Again, it's just daylight hours, 8 to 4. Again, it's about 9 months, 9.5 months, and the noise will be monitored.
Okay.
Okay, next slide. All right, so one of the things we had done is we worked with the contractor. Initially, when we conceived this project, it was anticipated that the contractor would have to use a large crane that would have been situated down in front of the police memorial, and there would have been calculated 52 different picks that they would have to use from the crane, which would have necessitated closing the playground and the dog run and the ramp to the North Cove Marina every time that we made a pick. So as you can see, we did a lot of effort to try and not take up that sizable area. The contractor did a good job coming up with being able to use the gantry crane instead. So the ramp to North Cove Marina will always be open, and the playground and the dog run will always remain open.
I think that,
I think that was it, right?
yeah. And so we were able to make we were able to make some changes to allow more pedestrian space, as Kevin has shown, to make sure we're maintaining that access. We're happy to take any questions.
I was going to say, I'm sure there's going to be a couple questions.
I'm sure.
I have started to see some hands up. We're going to start with Alice, and then we'll go to Pat. And then if there are no other hands, then I have one other question for you.
Sure.
I'm looking in the public section, seeing none so far there either. Okay, Alice, you're first, and then Pat.
Oh, thanks very much. Thanks for the excellent presentation. I just wanted to ask, in terms of resiliency efforts by Battery Park City Authority, can you just describe a little bit what these water gates do? Is there any additional protection that'll be offered to the properties because of these gates? I guess what I'm fundamentally asking is, what are these gates for? I understand you mentioned the water, the cooling water for the facility at the water, but is there any other, you're pulling up all this property, as you know, the authority is very involved, obviously, in resiliency planning. Is there a marriage here that is being made or could be made?
Yeah,
If I can take this question.
Sure.
Yeah. So actually, this actually reduces the amount of energy that the World Trade Center uses for cooling. So during the winter months, in order to be more efficient and sustainable, the facility actually pulls in this cool river water to actually cool down and help cool, and produce the water. So we're using less energy. So that's what it actually does. It's actually like a heat exchanger.
I guess the question
and
is.
then the screens,
okay.
the screens help mitigate debris and marine life being pulled
Right.
into the tunnels.
So there's nothing, this project has nothing to do with the resiliency work, and that was reviewed, and there's nothing that goes on in terms of,
It's
sewage
separate.
outflow or any of these things that are going on underneath the water that could be part of this program that you're doing. I assume the answer is
It's
no.
a separate program from the
Separate.
larger resiliency effort.
But the pulling up of all of the property in this area would not offer, in your minds, a potential opportunity to do more on resiliency work in terms of, for example, sewage outflow or things like that.
Not at this particular area,
Okay.
but we are coordinating with BPCA on these elements.
Good to know.
in the project.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, Alice. Pat?
Good evening. Thank you for the presentation. I was kind of going to ask some of what Alice had to ask, but I also want to know, what are the public facilities that are cooled down by this water? What specific areas are cooled down?
Okay, I'll take that. It goes into our general cooling facility, so the whole campus, public areas and private areas.
But what are the public areas?
Yeah, so the public areas actually include the PAC that just recently was built. It's the Performing Arts Center. That's
Okay.
a public space. I think there's a number of other spaces.
So it cools buildings.
Yes,
Right,
yes.
Okay.
Interior. Yeah, it's not the exterior; it's the interior.
Yeah, I was
within the
wondering.
transit. Yeah.
Right.
So it's
And
really the air. Is it air conditioning system or?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The memorial, the
conditions.
church,
Okay, so
Yeah,
interiors.
The Oculus as well. The whole
the Oculus,
parking
the
area.
hub. Yeah, the whole.
Got it.
Quite a
Thank
large
you.
footprint. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry about.
Moving to Justine. And Alice, is your hand still up or back up? Either way, if it's back up, oh, there we go. Justine, you're next.
Thanks. Sorry. Thanks so much. And I apologize for the background noise. I hope you can't hear it. I'm just at a
can't.
work event.
We're good.
But anyway, I guess my biggest question kind of follows up on what Alice was saying. And I know that we've all seen a lot of plans for the Northwest Battery Park City Resiliency Project. And so, number one, my question is there any way to coordinate any of the effort for the resiliency measures that the Battery Park City Authority is going to be doing while your work is going on, so we don't have to live with the construction twice? Question one. And then I'll ask my second question after you answer that one.
So we have to move forward with this. The other projects are further down the road, but we are coordinating on it because they impact three of our, or kind of near three of our facilities, which are the ferries, the path tunnels, and over by the water intake tunnels. So we'll continue to coordinate with them as they move forward with that project.
Okay, thank you so much. And then my second question is whether or not, once this work is completed, what is the effect going to be, or is there going to be any protection afforded to the equipment you have there to protect it against flooding or water damage or whatever else in the interim between the Battery Park City Authority implementing its resiliency measures, and or if in fact it's going to cover keeping the water off of this space?
We have set up a program that we did a few years ago. It goes by the acronym WIPS, that we can set up if we know something's coming in. We can set up the parts to go through. So that was, I think that was done 3 or 4 years ago to help mitigate any of that flooding over the river, over our electrical equipment in the river water pump station.
So it'll be protected. Thank you.
Yeah.
Vicky, you're next.
Thank you. Just out of like total curiosity here, is it Michael? Yeah.
Michael, yes,
So
correct.
thank you. Sorry. So the Port Authority, I'm trying to figure out how did you decide that this was an issue, and then how did you decide what the solution is, and then and how it affects the World Trade Center area and all the related buildings? Because you control the World Trade Center.
Yeah, so it, you know, it was built during the World Trade Center, and so
in the 70s.
In the 70s, so the infrastructure is beyond its useful life, and so we have to do that. And then the dredging material builds up over the, and I think we were there 5 years ago. We cleared some of it out, and keeping that away from the water intakes has a more balanced flow than if it's above, it pulls very hard. So we just want a more balanced flow.
Right.
Environmental
It's kind of like through regular maintenance, you can sort of assess the condition and what needs to be done.
Yeah, our folks, our engineering team went down there to take a look at it to replace those water gates.
Awesome, thank you.
And Mike, if I can add a little bit to that as well.
Yes, please.
The engineers also, what Tim called the bar rack or the trash rack, they actually spent a lot of time designing that, to help allow more surface areas so the water wouldn't go through as quickly. You'd still have the same volumetric flow of water, but not as high a velocity, so that doesn't trap the fish eggs, but it also helps keep the crabs from crawling in and dying inside the equipment as well. So they spent a lot of time coming up with the best design to keep the crabs out.
Oh yeah, no, save the crabs. And even though someone once told me that they had, as a young Princeton graduate engineering, his job was to empty out the end of these places, and he said he was pulling out 6-foot eels. I'm sorry. So anyway, Tammy's going, yeah, but I would like to save the crabs. Anyway, this is terrific news. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, Vicky. Okay, so my hand's up and I'll be next. I'll take my hand down now that I'm going. One of the things, there are a couple things that I have that are super important. One, obviously, is that accessibility is maintained throughout the entire project to both the tot lot and the dog run. it is critically important to understand that at every point and any point, accessibility is a concern because the tot lot is designed for younger families, therefore it's stroller central. So
Yeah.
no matter what point, wherever, if that is a prevailing thought, that accessibility is the first thought when you're moving equipment around, how are people getting through, and ensuring that it is accessible in that manner is vital. Okay.
Yeah, and after our initial conversation, Kevin went back to look at that in the second stage when we moved to the south gate on Kowski Plaza. He was able to pull the fence in so we can maintain access.
Which is awesome. It does then come to mind that the removals that you're doing in order to facilitate the equipment are actually old growth at this point, which provide a lot of shade cover with both vines and plantings and trees, as well as seating with benches and things like that. So when it gets rebuilt, is it being rebuilt exactly the same? But if so, obviously you're not going to be able to necessarily replant the plants that are there that are old and the vines. So what is the thought process on A, shade and seating during the project in both the tot lot and the dog run? And B, what's the plan post-project in terms of reconstituting the space? Is it going back exactly as is? What partnership with the authority has been done? Were there any design opportunities offered to provide even enhanced seating or shade in those spaces?
All right, I'll take that one, Mike. We looked at the impacts that we're going to have going into it, and there was only one tree area that was going to have to be cut back. And it turns out that the only cutting backs that had to be done was all dead wood that was in the tree anyway. So working with BPCA horticulture, they just trimmed out the dead wood and there was no impacts to the crane for the trees, those lovely birch trees. The only vine that'll be impacted is that one in the corner that I mentioned. And again, BPCA horticulture was out there. They looked at it. We'll get with them this fall to find out when the best time to do any cutbacks or removals or whatever is necessary. They seem pretty confident that we'd be able to prune it back and keep it. But we'll work closely with BPCA horticulture. As you're probably aware, the contractor will not be touching the vine, even though they have a horticulture on staff. It's BPCA Parks that'll be doing any of the pruning. They'll be doing the work. Yonkers Contracting, their horticulturists will make some recommendations, but it's BPCA that'll be touching the vines.
And Kevin, it's only the northwest corner, that one bench.
That one side. Unfortunately, it's the one vine that's the best growth, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm well aware.
I wished it was the southwest corner. That one's not doing too well and it's never done well, but it's the northwest corner.
Okay, and you've discussed with BPC Parks about cleaning access and availability for them to maintain both particulars, for the dog run and the tot lot.
Oh
And
yeah,
will this-
they will have full access to that. The only ones they won't have full access to, but whenever they want, they can get in, will be the round planters that are in Kowski Plaza, but those are minimal maintenance planters. They're those tall grasses that
Yeah.
they don't have to get in there that often anyway.
And in no way, shape, or form does this turn off the water in the tot lot or the dog run, correct?
Correct.
Okay, those are all of my questions. Looking at our team, I do not see anyone. I do not see anyone in the public area who has a hand up.
Tammy, can I just ask one question? And I
Sure.
think
Or hold on, if you are in the public and you are on a phone and you would like to raise your hand, it's *3. Please do so while Justine is talking. Go ahead.
Thanks, Tammy. My question was just gonna be, you spoke about access to the top lot, and that's guaranteed. But there's a place, or there's a piece of time, maybe 9 months, if I got it straight, where there's gonna be only one entrance or exit to the dog run. Is that correct?
As it stands right now, yes, that is correct. I'll work with the contractor to see where we could store the equipment to maintain access. However, when they go to do the easternmost sluice gate, so it won't be for the full 9 months, but there will be a time when the crane will be right by that that eastern gate. So I know for at least 1 month there won't be access to that one gate, but we'll minimize the amount of time that that gate is closed.
Thank you, Kevin. And I guess my request would be that if, I appreciate you doing what you can to keep it open as much as possible. And if in fact you do have to close it, if you can coordinate that with the more colder months when people are less likely to be out in the dog run or the park, that would be great. And I don't know if that also interferes with the construction work you're going to be doing. But if you know, when it's colder, you're less likely to do the dog run, so it might be not as much of a problem. But I recall someone saying that sometimes dogs in the dog run, you kind of need maybe 1 or 2 ways out if a dog is rambunctious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's good feedback. So we'll look for that timing if we
Yeah.
can adjust it.
If you
But
if
that's
you
good
can,
feedback.
that would be great. Thank you.
And then lastly, signage at every point. And before you close the second entrance for the dog run or anything else, please put signage up in the tot lot and the dog run for access changes and what they will be at least a week in advance, please.
Okay.
Awesome. Mike Fielder in the public session has his hand up. Mike, you're next and last. Lucian, can you unmute him?
Request sent.
Hey, thanks, Lucian, Tammy. Thanks for the presentation. I had just one question about this. It seemed that from the presentation, obviously these infrastructure was put in place when the World Trade Center was built, but there was some dredge work that happened a couple years ago. When might we expect this to happen again? Is this a recurring maintenance that we should expect every some amount of years?
I can answer that. Hi, everybody. I'm Ted, Ted Genie, Senior Program Manager, World Trade. And yeah, we did some dredging close to about 5 years ago, 2018, I believe it was. And we weren't able to get all of the sediment removed at that time. They ran into some compacted sediment and it was taking longer than anticipated. And as Kevin mentioned earlier, there's a window of time where we can do in water work. And that window of time starts in September and ends middle of January. So when the middle of January came along, we had to demobilize, stop doing the dredging, and we incorporated the remaining portion of that dredging into this contract. So we didn't go back again the next year. We got a decent amount out, but there still was a decent amount left to remove. So we took that scope of work and we bundled it into this scope of work that we're doing now. The design documents was going on for a while, you might say. Anyway, so we incorporated it in here to do that at this point in time. It's tough to say how long it might be for sediment to build up significantly enough, because the floor, we're going to be bringing the sediment down to approximately 8 feet below the water intake tunnels. So you're talking about 8 feet of sediment to build up. How long will that take? Nobody really knows. It could take 5 years. It could take more. It could take less. So it's to be determined. But as that sediment builds up and builds up and builds up over time, and it gets to be close to the intake tunnels again, we would have to go back in and do this exercise all over again of dredging and removing the sediment. But I can't say how many years that might be.
But the dredging isn't occupying the park. It's just out in the river. It's
correct. Correct. And I don't know how, like, the history from when this World Trade Center was built, how many times maybe dredging happened over the last 30, 40 years. But I don't think it was that often. I don't think it was that
Neither do
often at
we.
all.
My memory doesn't go back that far, and I'm not that
Yeah.
old, thankfully.
Yeah, right, same here.
Um,
So,
The
so
only other thing I think to build on what our fabulous question from the public realm came is that whatever a keen eye and dialogue should be had with the Battery Park City Authority. So while their resiliency work is not done, is done in that zone, Ted, it would be really awful if the 8 feet that you've kicked back due to the work that they're doing along the edge gets pushed back in. So having the dialogue when you're working with them on other things, and I did mention that to them during their presentations of this reach, that they should work with you to take a look and see with whatever changes they're making, both to the marina, to the side, and everything else, could provide enhanced access to the Port Authority for their underground work. So potentially you wouldn't need to necessarily barge it or, you know, put a giant crane, and whether there are different access panels and portions of how they could work. So I said this once to Mike when he told me you guys were coming. I'm mentioning it here as part of a closing statement for the community board, that the Port Authority should be very keenly in dialogue to ensure that the resiliency work that's done does not negate the work that you're currently doing.
gotcha.
So
Thank
Okay,
you. Tammy.
understood. We've had dialogue with, I believe it's AECom, right, and the resiliency
Mhm.
designs that they're putting together. And one of our team members, Jake Fry, is continuing that dialogue. They're having regularly scheduled meetings that he attends. So I'll convey the message to him, and we'll stay in touch and in tune with them and the work that they're planning to do, and make sure that we coordinate.
perfect. Really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you for jumping to the top of the agenda for us tonight. You are certainly more than welcome to stay as we talk about our lovely streets, which we'll do next, because a lot of it is in your jurisdiction. And Mike, I definitely welcome you to stay. And for the committee who is here and everyone who is on, Mike is here to observe and listen. I promised him that he would not be grilled on the spot about our dialogue. So I'm putting it out there and asking him to hear the community as a listening portion.
Thank you all. Thank you
Thanks,
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ted.
everyone.
So again, redoing how we're working at this is the post 9/11 security versus public realm usage paradigm and opportunities for using frozen and underutilized assets. And by this is a discussion about Vesey Street, Greenwich Street, Liberty, and Duane. And for those who were, I did get outreach from people who were like, what do you mean Duane Street? Where on Duane? We're specifically looking over by the federal buildings and over by the African Memorial, the African Burial Grounds, that museum area. Lucian has some photos that we're going to put up so everybody is familiar, if you are not already, with the spaces that we're talking about. So, okay, this is Vesey Street. So if people remember or don't know, when the World Trade Center design was done and the campus plan created, one of the things that was so widely celebrated was its enhanced open access through the city, and how we would have cross streets at Vesey and Fulton, and conversations about how Liberty would work with the security center. What has resulted since the time of the awarding of the new plans and the buildings and the conversation is a fully locked down campus for security protocols. And the question starts to become, as we look ahead and beyond 22 years later, what do we want to see? And if we are never going to get the streets open, and that is an if, how can the area be enhanced? Could this be a shared street? Could it be turned into a pedestrian boulevard? Could it be turned into any of the lovely things that we're talking about in other areas of the city instead of solely bollards. Where's the bike path in and around? Vesey is a pedestrian only between, other than authorized black cars that cross into access onto Fulton, right? So it's crossing Vesey or down the back. It is an ideal opportunity to connect the bike paths on Church Street to the Greenway, because it's already a closed street. We don't have to fight with parking and cars. It's an ideal opportunity to green the street and the area. Lucian, do you have more photos for us? So this is the intersection, as people remember this. If you're standing here looking, the Performing Arts Center is in front of you if you're taking a look. And you've got the Oculus. You can see it is ostensibly workday and nothing going on. Go ahead, next. Although there is a traffic light. This is Liberty. Period, closed. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. Right, and Liberty, once you get past the gate going down towards the 10 house, towards Greenwich, keep going.
I have to pull up the browser for the next one. Take me 1 second.
Okay, so these are dialogues to have. We don't even have, interestingly enough, there you go. This is Dwayne. And we don't even have benches and street seats, which we could, that as of right, we could ask for on the sidewalks, right? Look at this beautiful museum that's totally hidden because people can't get there, and yet it's a parking lot for placard cars. So we start to have the question in the dialogue, what can we ask for? What should we be looking at? Is there a way to have this be a better use in the public realm?
And I'll add, Tammy, that UT has lots of treatments and options in that they're already in place for streets that even aren't blocked off by security gates, that where pedestrians and cars are intended to exist in the same space. They're not confined to sidewalks. It's a better experience. In a street where the cars enter one by one, and then essentially they can't be at speed. They're going to be driving slowly. Areas with a monument, parks already adjacent, could only be enhanced with additional space for pedestrians to sit, to circulate, to enjoy Lower Manhattan. And this is one of the premier tourist destinations in the city. If not for its adjacency to Tribeca, for the National Monument, City Hall, but just tourists taking picture of the steps because it looks like Law and Order set. There's a lot of tourists all around this area all the time.
So essentially, the dialogue starts to become, how do we make lemonade out of some lemons, right? What can we do? We always want the streets open, and maybe at some point in the future, we can get the streets far more open. But at this point in our current situation, in our current status, what can we do to enhance the environment? And I think that's it's a good question to ask. The mayor is looking all over the city for places to make shared streets and for ways to really enjoy the public realm. So we look at World Trade Center as perhaps one of our greatest opportunities with Vesey Street closed, Greenwich Street closed. We want parts of Liberty Street open. It has to be for the fire thing. But what else can we do? So I'm going to open it up for discussion here. I'm going to go, Pat, Vicky, and then Betty. And then Jason Friedman, I see Jason, why are you over there? You need to be moved over. Can you move Jason over? He's in the public section for some reason. Okay.
So I'm first. So just remember, Liberty Street is very different from Vesey Street and from the streets that surround the African American burial ground.
Yeah.
The African burial ground. Liberty Street, you just showed my house like several times. So I'm very familiar with Liberty Street. The only thing I want on Liberty Street is for it to be open to vehicular traffic, to cars. We don't need any seating on Liberty Street. We have the steps that go up to the Greek church. We have the memorial across the street. So Liberty Street, I think, is okay the way it is, unless they're going to open it up to traffic, which we have spoken to several agencies about, because Greenwich South has 6 working streets and they don't always work. And so when one street is closed, you can't get through Greenwich South. You can't get anywhere. You can't get to Rector. You can't get anywhere. So I would like to see Greenwich Street.
What do you think about Greenwich and Vesey around
I'd
World
like to
Trade?
see Greenwich between Vesey and Liberty opened, either to car traffic, or they could put benches along Greenwich Street on either side of the memorial.
It could also be a shared street. It doesn't mean open can be shared.
But when you say shared street, shared with what? They already let bicycles. I mean, what people walk down Greenwich Street in the middle of the street?
Greenwich is allowable for particular. We were told that Greenwich was allowed for pre-approved. There's a list of approved cars in, obviously, NYPD and counterterrorism and anybody.
And
from
remember,
law
when we
enforcement.
were told that, we said, well, we never heard of this list for any of the people who live in this immediate area. We were not told that you could be on this pre-approved list to be able to access your community. So again, I mean, they let bikes in, they talk about security. You can put a bomb on a bike and ride in. So.
But Pat, it doesn't sound to me like you are necessarily then against, as long as there's some kind of open access. And if this was a way to get open access by having a shared street, maybe a dedicated bike lane, so you get kind of all of it, that would not be something that you would be objecting to on Greenwich or Vesey.
No, but what I'm saying right now is you don't even need a bike lane because you don't have cars on those streets. So the bikes ride all over. If you allow cars to access those streets, then yes, you need a dedicated bike lane. Right now, there are bikes all over the place on Greenwich Street and on Vesey Street and on Liberty Street.
Hence the point
I'll
of
just
making it a little bit more structured. Okay.
I'll just clarify that sometimes, even though that there's not a lot of other competing uses that you may see as putting cyclists in danger, in some cases, striping a bike lane allows the city to officially add it to the map, and that helps for wayfinding and people finding safe routes. Where they may say like, "Oh, I can't go in there." There's a security area. It would say, "Oh, I'm invited to use this as a way to go where I'm going, where I might otherwise not go."
That's
so
great.
just adds it to the map in that sense.
Lucian, that would be great for the bicyclists. It still doesn't do anything to help the rest of us.
Okay.
But I'm not opposed to them putting, if that helps the bicyclists, great, but it doesn't help the rest of us.
Vicky, Betty, and then Susan.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, when you are in Battery Park City, it's magic in comparison to, like, let's say FiDi or on the other side of Broadway. So it's really hard for the Lower Manhattan people to find a place to repose, rest, and just ponder and enjoy life. And if we can have as many areas that are planted with planters or trees in planters, flowers in planters, with benches and chairs and possibly a place to have lunch, wouldn't it be nice to get out of work and just sit for a few minutes? I do have to say that, to use your word, green the area is my thing, because at the other side of Broadway or from that area onwards is starving for a place other than the grid rat, grids like rats just run up and down grids. I know that I would just say that, we have to be careful that, the area is maintained and not taken over. And I don't want anyone screaming at me, but the damn skateboarders, they ruin everything. They make noise, which is unwanted sound. They ruin property. Then we have Washington Park, because I wish I could go in there and repose and rest, but it's turned into a shit show in itself. So we need Laura, we need a landscape architect to come and give some direction if we can green the area, to quote someone, Tammy, I think you said it. That would be my plea, to give us some place to go to.
That's my goal as well. Betty, Susan, and then Mimi.
Thank you. I, in general, agree with Vicky on more greening, and that being both shade as well as planted areas. I think are really important. So I'm for that, as well as some more seating. And there is a desperate need for some secure bicycle parking. And I'm concerned that the Port Authority has been pretty against bicycles. People talk about them going through, but for instance, you can't use the PATH train and get off at the World Trade Center. So they do really detour the access to the area with bicycles. And I'm not so sure they're going to allow secure parking, such as an Unipod or something. But I think that's really important to have some. How do you encourage people to take alternative routes of transportation and then make sure they have no infrastructure to do it? That doesn't make any sense. So we need to create some infrastructure. In terms of the streets where there are no vehicles now, I am not in support of opening them up. Sorry, Pat. For Liberty Street, if that is the only route in, and some vehicles are let in heavily restricted to people going only to the block they're driving on and nowhere else. Because I personally count on being able to go in the street. There are very few curb cuts. It's a very difficult neighborhood for me to get around on a scooter.
Betty, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Because if we were able to have, for example, Vesey turned into more of a shared street where there was no curb needed, right? That it was just a whole street that sloped.
Right.
You had a dedicated bike path and then there were slopes, then that would certainly change the experience of that. And actually even taking a look at that more along Greenwich Street as well for the slopes. Liberty is hard because you need a sidewalk. You've got the firehouse there. But I did want to ask you how you felt about sloping the, so you're not reliant, for example, on curb cuts, which would also help in some ways because skateboarders aren't then jumping off the sidewalks, kind of a thing, just saying. And then the other thing I wanted to ask you, the one thing you may not see on Liberty that I think Pat sees and I see, Liberty sensibly is closed from West Street up to Church, but the people who do use it going back the one way, the wrong way on Liberty are motorized delivery bikes. So if you are coming, you see it from Battery Park City if you're stopped at the light on Liberty and West, and the bikes are coming at you, even though there's no traffic light for them, no path for them, they come across because they're not following any kind of traffic rules because they're cutting through World Trade. So having a way to clearly define a bicycle route and lanes and having someone, I'm begging anybody, do some traffic enforcement would be fantastic.
Yeah, I wouldn't count on traffic enforcement. But the issue of cargo bikes is going to become a bigger one because currently in Albany, they're looking at 48-inch wide cargo bikes. It is moving to vote in the Assembly. It hasn't left committee yet in the Senate, but it's definitely moving in that direction. And it's something that I'm going to be bringing up at Transportation Committee. And that raises the whole issue of even where the bicyclist's going to go when you have 48-inch wide cargo bikes that are legal to use. Now, again, that makes a lot of sense when you get into the last mile delivery system, which the borough president and others are pushing. If they're going to be moving more cargo around by bike so you can get them out of vans and trucks, not adding to them, but replacing them. Yes, where are you going to put these bicycles that are cargo bikes without displacing the routine two-wheel bicycles. Because when you get to 48 inches wide, they take up way more than the width of a bicycle lane. They
And
wouldn't be
actually,
able to
they
pass
don't
each other.
correct. And I don't think that they can fit on the bike path due to the bollards.
They would have a hard time because I know that I have to be careful.
Yep. There's a whole article on bollards and bike paths, but all right. Are you good?
I just want to say Duane Street though, because there is an example there where you do have cars. If they would at least limit parking and do something, because I agree, a little bit more greenery there and something more protected for the bicycles, that could be an ideal shared street. I'm not talking about getting rid of vehicles where there clearly are vehicles. But thanks.
Thank you very much. Susan and then Mimi.
I agree with all the greening and everything else. I just would have trouble, Pat, but about parking between VC and Liberty. I don't think they will allow it. I mean, I think you could have traffic, but I don't think you should have parking. I really don't. That's my big concern, and I think it's complicated there. But I don't have any trouble with cars, but I don't think you should have parking.
It's we don't anyway. So
I mean, you know, but if you're going to open it up, and how are you going to open it up to the traffic, and then not to allow the placards and all of that business? That's all I'm saying.
Good point. Thank you, Susan. All right, Mimi, you're next, and Betty and Susan, if you don't mind putting your hands down.
Yeah, I agree with the a lot of things that have been said recently. I think that if there is a street that it would make sense to have reopened due to access issues, I think that would make a lot of sense. But like, I think that if we have seats, we end up having more seating, that it would be really great if we could have a well-designed toilet put to that space for use. Because you're sitting around, you might need to go to the bathroom. I just want to put toilets everywhere.
You know what? It's an opportunity that we can have that discussion for Vesey Street, without a doubt, because if we're making an ask for a shared street to green the street, provide dedicated bike paths, you know, make it an opportunity to put street seats out on the sidewalks even. I mean, for goodness sakes, the pack is being built with no bicycles, right? So no place for anybody. If they ride to work, they have no place to park their bikes. So, you know, adding all of that in for dialogue would have to get past counterterrorism, but it's not a bad ask. There's no reason we don't ask. To say that there's no way that it could be secured or safe, I don't know. They manage it in Times Square, so why can't we manage it down here? Right? And I don't want to be Times Square, but I certainly would like for all those tourists who go to visit the memorial and do not buy a ticket to go to the museum, they need a restroom.
But the pack said they had public bathrooms.
They will. But I don't think that they're looking for, you know, 100 people who get off 2 buses to line up and walk in there. You know,
Or I mean, like just anybody, like delivery drivers, you know, taxi drivers, like anybody needs a toilet, and having it in a space where they might have to like park and walk over to it is still a spot that they can go to. So
correct, because you can't take your, if you're a delivery bicyclist, you can't take your delivery bike and go downstairs into the Oculus to find the public restrooms there. So, alrighty. So knowing this, we had talked about doing potentially for executive committee, having a discussion. Do we feel that we are good enough to put this out for resolution saying that we are ready, that we would like this done on these streets? Or would you like to see the language put together and brought next month for a vote? Lucian, go.
I'm a big proponent of when we have time, rewriting and drafting language and getting it just right. and only tweaking a committee.
I'm
That's all I
down
got.
with that. So if everybody is good with that, then we're going to take all the notes from this month. We'll put them together. I'm going to volunteer Mimi to help me with this one because we'll get everything in and we will present for per street for next month. And that also gives our friend Mr. Lavery, who's still here, an opportunity to come back to us, even if he doesn't want to come back in this public meeting. When we talk about shared streets, greenings, bike paths, and public restroom opportunities around the campus on all the streets that we've identified and chatted with to see what can, he can certainly tell us what he doesn't think will happen, but that doesn't mean we won't try. Right? So Mimi, you're in with me. So we just got to do it by next month. And then I'm happy to do a walk over on Duane Street with anybody and everybody who wants to walk over there and think about the potentials of what could be on that zone, Betty very specifically. And I really do think that we can try and make the World Trade Center campus a model for accessibility and access, even if it doesn't include public access for cars due to safety concerns for, I'm sorry, unplacarded, permitted cars. All right. All right, cool. Thank you. With that, let's move to the next one, which absolutely is outdoor public restrooms. And then we're going to go into Council 501. Okay. So for the public restrooms outside, one of the dialogues that we all need to really think about with open restaurants is the fact that this is public realm space. This is space that's being offered to the restaurateurs. It is a boon for the real estate development community because they are able to charge more for their space interior, knowing that there is an exterior opportunity. So it is actually a great real estate bonus. So we see that the developer, much like when they build and ask for an FAR bonus, you get a POPs sometimes, you get a public give back for that. So the question starts to become, in everything that we have passed with prior resolutions, not being happy with open restaurants, being, slighted to only restaurants, not open to other businesses, the things that we've all discussed. The one thing we didn't go on record saying was we did also a resolution asking the Department of Buildings to take a look at the number of restrooms that are required, because when seasonal seating, which was what sidewalk seating was initially confirmed with the city, it was not, it's on a sidewalk. It wasn't designed for capacity building. It was really a seasonality with very temporary things. It wasn't what we see today with heaters and electrified and everything else with the sidewalk dining. So if you are a restaurateur, you have an opportunity at this point to have not only sidewalk seating, which didn't necessitate a change to your bathrooms, but then you also have an entire opportunity for street bed seating. Now, depending on the street you are on and depending on where you're located, if you're a corner lot, we'll use Bubby's as an example. You can double or triple the amount of seating that you have because you're a corner lot. The original restaurant program was designed to have seating because people could not be inside for service. So the bathrooms could be open, but you didn't have people seated. Now you have the same bathrooms and a huge percentage of seating that is above and beyond what we used to have. So the question becomes, could we then go on record and sending to the city council and the organizations and agencies that are working on setting the open restaurant rules that we want the restaurants to be required to make outdoor public restrooms as part of the open dining footprint to help satisfy the codes for the health and mental hygiene requirements for bathrooms for number of seats, and then have those open to the public.
Absolutely.
This is a way that we can certainly get bathrooms, public restrooms for every zip code. It's a great public give back for attending space. Now, I know there's going to be hands, and I really want robust hands. Jason, you're first.
Not sure I can deliver on the robustness, but you know, when you say it for the 100th time and tell the whole story, and I listen to it again, I wonder, along the way, were things addressed like, okay, now you have your occupancy for inside is such on the C of O, and then, you know, is there a temporary certificate of occupancy for how many people are safely able to occupy these 10 by whatevers, such that, you know, in the building code, there should be a section that says use group sidewalk eating, and the maximum occupancy load is whatever, 100 square feet per person. That's how it's handled on inside of the building. Is that like gonna be addressed, or did it ever come up, kind of stuff?
The only thing we did was a resolution that asked the Department of Buildings for new spaces going forward to include sidewalk seating, the street road seating in their calculations for bathrooms, you know,
Right.
for fixtures.
Right, and that's kind of like, when you say it like that, you're right. The building department has a certain load requirements, ratios, whatever. Amount of people is this, you need this many bathrooms. But they also have a lot of ratios that have to do with just safety. And I know I love bathrooms too, but there's like 99% of the other things that feel like they need to be checked by the amount of occupancy that's being proposed. And it seems missing. So if there's a way to just not zero in only on bathroom compliance, but just general occupancy load compliances, maybe that's for later, maybe that, I don't know, but it sounds like something that should be, rules should be made up, amended to include these areas at the building department.
Agreed, because temporary seating, meaning sidewalk seasonal seating, because of the nature of the space and the low amount of numbers that could be added, were not considered onerous to those ratios. When you look up all the stuff about sidewalk seating.
Right, but you could imagine if you have 100 people in a shed that only has a 6-foot opening for access and getting out of the shed, you know, that's where those ratios should be put in place so that we have that going. I'll stop.
No, can I add something to that?
Go ahead, Vicky, and then Betty's next.
No, right. No, I don't mean to go ahead of Betty, just to Jason. So when you're doing public assemblies and restaurants, the code already has, so we can rely on that. It already has calculations where that you can calculate how many people you have based on what kind of seating is it? Is it fixed? Is it movable? And we can use the existing laws, and I think it's really mandatory, as Jason says, to calculate the maximum occupancy based on the kind of seating and service they're going to provide. We already have those laws. We should ask that you know, we begin by using that, and then based on that, you also have to provide exit lanes, or you know, for people like Betty and mothers with strollers, you can't just take over the whole thing and say we got 3 feet. That's good enough for you. That we do have these laws in place, and we should ask for that to be enacted, and then also use the existing laws to calculate how many public restrooms are required.
Betty, you're next. And you're muted, my friend.
You're looking at the current city council law that they're contemplating putting in about outdoor dining?
We're hoping to affect it. They have not done any consideration, which is beyond frustrating that there's no consideration for public restrooms and associated with the additional capacity, nor have there been dialogue and discussion about increasing even the interior amount of bathroom space due to the additional capacity. So I'm not, you know, I could say it any number of ways, but they're all thinking about dollars and seats, and no one's thinking about safety. And what, you know, it's a community board's purview when we're taking a look at what it's gonna, how it results and what the benefits are. This is a public space. We need public benefit. That's kind of what I'm trying.
And that's what I wanted to say, that because these will be year by year allowances by, if it is the DOT, whoever's regulating it, I can see why the building department wouldn't necessarily include some of these things, because it may not, a particular building won't be necessarily be associated from a given year to another year. However, with the legislation, it certainly could be attached. And I agree that the bathroom facilities should be definitely be tied to the number of seats, indoors and outdoors, that are allotted to a particular restaurant. The thing that I question is saying in the footprint, simply because it's going to be so variable by the number of seats that a person has, the amount of space they have, but also if you're on a road with a whole string of restaurants all grouping together, where in fact it may make more sense to put in some restrooms or bathrooms that are shared. And what we found with the bathroom working group was sometimes they're better off to take some space that's indoors rather than plumbing outdoors, because DOT won't allow it because of the infrastructure on that particular block. So I just see a problem with the phrase "in the footprint."
Okay. If you say in the footprint, but you leave the ability for a combination or a variance, I don't see that that would be bad. And what I mean by that is I don't know any restaurateur that's going to want to build additional restrooms and lose additional seating and revenue on the inside, right? That's because if it's a terrible weather, right, and no one's outside, you've given away your permanent opportunity for revenue on the inside. However, if it's on the outside and it's in the public footprint, it's in the public footprint, and it's a percentage. So, if if they have enough bathrooms on the inside that fits with what Vicky and Jason were talking about the percentage that they need, then it's fine. But if they're over that percentage, then whether it's on their footprint or they're sharing with the guy next to them and they co-join, that's for them to work out. I don't need to describe it. I just need to have a bathroom. It has to be health and safety. That's kind of where I'm at. That's my only 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I wanted to make the point that they have to guarantee access for the number of people they have seats for. But I wouldn't be so prescriptive about exactly how they do it, because the situations could really vary.
Jason, you were saying?
I was just going to say that's where the idea of the load it solves the problem that I think it sounded like Betty had a problem with the word footprint, because load is a ratio between footprint and the amount of things you want to do in a footprint. And it's, if you can find a nice constant there, it probably will generally work along any sidewalk. And then you could add corner conditions or other conditions stipulations that change the load occupancy. But, I don't know. It sounds like building department should be doing something about it and making some laws, but maybe they're not, and whatever.
Yeah, kind of with you on that. All right. I saw Susan, your hand up for briefly. You're waving me no? Okay, gotcha. All right. Let's see if I have anybody in the public section with a hand up. You're in the public section and you'd like to raise your hand at *3. So then you can be unmuted. Okay. Seeing none, what we'd like to do, because ostensibly you have to kind of look at things in terms of timing. This is one of those that I'd like to work with Vicky and Jason and Pat, maybe, and Betty to get all the wording down the best that we can right now, whether it's with load, whether or not we include the word footprint. And I say that because this is March. We are on spring already. If I'm reading the tea leaves on what I see ahead of us, I think that open restaurants has to be approved by May or June to be functional outside of an executive order. And when you have hospitals who have announced through PR that they are no longer requiring masks as being one of the most critical essential services, then I am suspect that we will need to opine sooner versus later. So on that, those are my 2 cents about trying to drive through a resolution tonight. Vicky and then Alice.
I just wanted you to remind me, wasn't there a group, did we see them in land use? Wasn't there a city group that reviewed all of this and we're gonna like do a comprehensive plan? They discussed the look of this outdoor seating, and I'm sorry, am I right about that? I am, I know
Yeah,
I am,
I
right?
think it was the City Planning Commission.
Right, so
Department
what
of
the
City
hell did they
Planning.
come up
Yeah.
with? If they
So we
didn't even
haven't seen
figure
any
out,
news. We
square
haven't
footage
seen anything
areas.
back from them, Vicky.
All those
Oh, I see,
people
okay.
that presented that no longer work in city planning, as usual.
Lovely.
Rotate
Okay.
around and put big broad stroke ideas through a revolving door.
Because
It
they
does.
spent like 3 months, sorry, Tammy, they spent like 3 months working on it. They came, we asked some basic questions. They didn't have them, even attempted to resolve them. So I was just wondering if they came up with something, at least we can use that as a beginning, but I guess not.
They have not come up with it yet. They've not been back, and I don't suspect.
Lovely.
I don't suspect we would get another bite at the apple. So this is another way to kick the tires to ensure that we get
Okay.
heard. Alice, you're up.
Sorry, I'm on a couple of things here I'm doing. I'm sorry, I might have missed a little bit, but I did want to just on the record state that I don't think, and I know I've shared this with you a little bit, Tammy, that I think you're on the right track. I think this is premature. I think that this board is on record for advocating for outdoor bathroom facilities. I think for the reasons Betty explored, that this may not necessarily be the way that every sidewalk in front of every meaty restaurant would be best used. I think it's a tacit support from where I stand, and that's personal, of advocating for the open restaurant program, which, as I know, this board did not necessarily advocate for fully, and in fact identified many other uses for the sidewalk. So I think we're well ahead of ourselves with this. And I think you're on the right track to postpone it until we are aware of where this permanent open restaurants text amendment and identification of all of its different variables are confirmed for us. So I just want to, advocate for, postponement, which it sounds like you're doing anyway on this particular item. Thanks.
I think, Alice and I have similar and separate opinions because I do think that the open restaurant program is coming. We've already been told by the city agencies it's coming, so we don't agree with it. We think that there should have been different rules made for many things. We are on it, saying that in its current existence, in a mixed use environment where people live above it, it's inappropriate for how they have it structured. But I do think that this adds another layer that we can say, if it comes into play, here is the, another major
Yeah,
sort of concern
appreciate- right.
going with what Jason was saying, that, what's the word, Jason?
Occupancy load.
Occupancy load. Thank you.
That's how bathrooms are calculated. That's how things are calculated at the Department of Buildings.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I just say I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's all important, and it may very well march forward. We just don't know how it's marching forward, and I'd like to see the plans where these things are actually going to happen, which part are seasonal, which part are permanent. I just don't think we have enough information to necessarily advocate for this without knowing. You certainly don't want to have, nor would you ever see a permanent bathroom in a place that is going to only have seasonal use, and maybe we want seasonal use. So I just don't think we have enough information.
It's seasonal bathrooms as
Okay.
well. I mean, it's
Okay.
seasonal
How
use
can you
for
have this
seasonal bathrooms. It's just
seasonal?
whenever you get to add your seats, you got to have a place to go pee.
Okay.
First,
Anyway, I'm glad
occupancy.
we're not voting on it tonight. If I'm hearing us correctly, we're not having a resolution tonight, right, on this, or are we not?
No, I propose
Okay.
that we did. So
Oh,
there's
okay.
a question.
Yeah, I
There's
think
a
you're
que-
ahead of yourself. I think there's no rush here, and I don't think that we have enough information. I haven't even seen the text amendment. Do you have any? I don't see anything. I mean, I haven't seen anything that shows us the actual plans except for what we saw, as Vicky's pointing out, quite a while ago. I mean, shouldn't we at least be offered that to look at before we vote on something as to how we want to use this area? Bathrooms or not? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I would like to have to
the
see the most
open-
updated plans for the open restaurants before we were to vote on where bathrooms should go or not. But
I don't necessarily think we're voting on where bathrooms should go. We're asking them to take a look at occupancy load and ensure that if it doesn't meet, that they provide a public restroom in the public space, a public restroom in the public space, because they are taking public space.
okay, I hear you. Yep.
Yep. Betty, your hand backs up. And you're muted.
Yeah, I was going to pretty much say what you just did, in response to Alice, and that is the DOT had a job out hiring people to work on open restaurants, when in fact the final decision of who's going to do it is going to be part of the legislation. So I agree with you that you need to get ahead of it, especially about something like bathrooms. If you want to incorporate it in the law, why wait for the law to be finished? It seems pretty fundamental to say, we think that they should count all people in the number of the occupancy load that's going to be counted for the bathrooms. And if it's seasonal, it's seasonal. And if there are multiple restaurants that can share a trailer toilet, I'm fine with all kinds of options.
Okay. I'm gonna go Pat, Susan, Betty, and Allison.
Basically, I was going to say the same thing, Betty, that you just said. But but also we've never heard them when we've heard any kind of discussion about the open restaurants. We've never heard anything about them taking into consideration the amount of bathrooms that they're lacking. So I think we need to bring the topic up. We're not telling them where to put the bathrooms. And as Betty said, we will take anything. If two restaurants next to one another want to share the responsibility of putting a bathroom someplace, we're not telling them where to put them. We're just saying, if you're increasing your capacity for customers free, and it's for free, because you're taking space away from the citizens of New York City without paying for it, then you should at least provide a public amenity, which is a bathroom.
Okay. Susan?
I agree with Betty and Pat and you. I think we should jump the gun. I'm all for it. I hate to wait for them to always slap stuff on us. And we can, that's all I have to say. I think we should do it.
Okay. So, Alice, your hand is still up. Don't know if you're listening, but
I am listening. Sorry, I hear you all. I'm going to abstain until I see the written resolution. I hear everybody. It's strong points. Thank you.
So I think the written resolution starts with the therefore be it resolved is that is if the existing facilities within the restaurant exceed the occupancy load with the temporary seasonal seating, then the restaurant would be required to provide a public restroom, a seasonal public restroom. Right?
I said this to you the other day. Why does it have to be seasonal?
We don't know what it's going to be.
I'm sorry?
I think it's, you're not going to get every restaurant that says it. Restaurants aren't going to pay for a restroom without the additional revenue there. You know what I mean? They need to have the give back. I think it's actually burdensome to ask for it to be permanent. I think we're saying as part of this restaurant program with additional capacity of your occupancy load, you need to provide, it's a matter of health and safety and hygiene, the restrooms that go with it.
Well, then my other point then would be, all right, so if you take away the seasonal bathroom, which means that it has to be some sort of temporary bathroom, then I propose that all year round, you at least open your bathrooms to the public. People can disagree with me, but that's how I feel.
Alice?
Sorry. What are you asking me? Did you ask me, like, what do I think of what Pat just said? I think they should. I think it's an actual solution because you're never going to get any these bathrooms being built on sidewalks in the city. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit of a pessimist on that. But you could ask the
She's
restaurants
right.
obligated to open their doors. That's actually an ask that could happen. But the other stuff is frankly a pipe dream as far as I can imagine, because we can't even get the six bathroom, the 6 toilets that exist today somewhere placed in New York City. So the thought that we're going to be having these on street corners is unlikely, but the fact is you should be able to use the bathroom. I think it's a great idea. And I know it's been discussed before, so I think it's a good suggestion, Pat. Yep, I like that.
Vicky and Betty.
Thank you. I just want to add, when we design these things, bathroom facilities cannot and won't be put on sidewalks, not only because technically, other than if you have just non-plumbed enclosures, then you'll get the smell. So that's not going to happen. Public streets have their own utilities, and to do that is going to be an ask that I can't imagine it being done. Also, going to a bathroom is a somewhat semi-private thing when you enter the door and exit. So just imagine what we're asking, everyone lining, coming and going. It's kind of an unpleasant thing to have to be forced to do. So I have to say, Alice is absolutely right when she says, let the restaurants open the doors if they ask for extra space.
So let me ask you something.
Just think about it, right?
Right,
It's
so
just,
Vicky, let me
you
ask you
get up
something.
and the whole world knows,
Vicky?
you have fumbling through your bag.
Yep,
Yes.
let me ask you something. You've got a restaurant that is 50 to 75 seats inside, and they've added 125 seats outside for
Right.
seasonal seating. However
Well,
many
so- right.
bathrooms they have inside will not handle the capacity they have with the indoor and
outside.
outdoor, nor will
Yeah.
it be able to handle the public. In those
Yeah.
kind of cases, due to the occupancy load, that I don't care if it's a porta potty or it's a throne room or it's like the trailers that they have out at Governor's Island, which have sinks and stuff like that, right? Whether
Yes.
they need to provide something for health and safety,
Well,
right?
but the first thing that Jason and I said was that we should ask that the law be reversed or be considered in an organized manner. You cannot add 100 seats, let's say. There has to be a calculation in order to create orderly process, and we have that in place. It's via the building code. And so if you're sitting down, it's like 15 square foot per person. If it's a non-fixed seat, if it's a fixed seat, but there are rules. So that's one thing. I was not in favor of these restaurants clogging the streets any which way they wanted to, because in our city, we experienced this. You give them a finger, they take a hand. You go to Europe, there's 5 seats. You come here, there's 50. So we have to adhere to what we already have. We're not going to change the code or add something to it. So that's what Jason said. I was like, yeah, we already have these rules. So first we have to mitigate the numbers and
Would you want
adhere to the rule.
Would you want to put in the resolution, okay, any new construction, because existing construction isn't, is built, all right, in the built environment. New construction needs to take into account they're seasonal in the occupancy load for the bathrooms.
Well, but if you have an existing restaurant and now you're going to have some outdoor seating, is that considered new construction? Yes.
No,
No,
Well, it has to be,
it's not.
it's not.
but it has to be, because if you're expanding and you're not
It's
paying
not-
rent and you're
it is-
sitting on public land.
It's not considered, it is not. We already know that from what's already been passed.
There's chaos right there. You'll see. We'll be having this conversation in 5 years.
Yep.
Chaos.
Betty, your turn.
Okay, I have a couple of points. First, the comment about having to give access to the public to the existing bathrooms if a restaurant has outdoor space. That's a no-go, so whether I like it or not, it's kind of a non-issue. The fact is, when the state law allows people access to bathrooms in businesses, stores and other things, as long as there are at least 2 employees at work. That's state law. That is not, New York City does not enforce that. And in fact, Mayor Adams came out and specifically said, when the plumbing regulations were rewritten, he said, no, I'm going to interpret them as no business has to allow anybody in unless they're a patron. So it's, in my mind, it's a no-go. This mayor has gone multiple times, a statement saying he isn't going to allow it. But as far as having access to it, that we could do with the law and say that we demand it. I would not use the word seasonal because it is still being fought out if it's going to be seasonal or year round. Yeah, and doesn't matter what I want. I just know there are very heavy lobbies on both sides. So I would avoid seasonal because it could jeopardize those that are open longer when that's not your intention. So just say when they're in operation.
So okay, so we've got a lot of things going at the moment on this, and it's executive, which is always fun to be the last or second to last committee before full board in terms of resolution writing. Why don't we do this? Why don't we draft a resolution and then vote on it next month? I am hopeful that we won't get the restaurant legislation out by then. If we do, then I'm not sure how we'll handle that. I may say I told you so, and I will be really unhappy about that. But I do think that we need to. We can get all the details in it. If the law exists about opening the bathroom to the public based on employees, then that can go in a whereas that's in there. That should be included to be accessed and open, because you may have 1 employee if you've got a tiny restaurant, 2 if you have seasonal seating. That'll change. That'll change the components with the bathroom access as well, and we can include that in there. But I do think that we could carve it out really well with getting the occupancy load and the other items on that we want and have it clean for next month, as much as I really don't want to do that. I just nagging feeling in my back. Thoughts? Pat, you're shaking your head no. You want to go this month?
Yeah, I mean, I think we should do it as soon as possible, but I understand how difficult it is to write a reso, so.
Betty?
I was just going to try to Google it. I haven't heard anything that makes you believe they're getting ready to vote on it now. But when you're talking about short time frames, there certainly are groups out there speaking as if it's moving forward. And you're right, the time frame is such, they kind of have to do something.
All right. Mimi, thoughts? And after Mimi, Jason.
I feel like thinking it through all the way could be really good. Yeah.
Okay. Jason?
As someone who has to write 3 or 4 resolutions, I would say think through this month and rush next month, and let's, like I said, I heard you say this thing and someone told this thing 100 times, and now some things clicked in my head. I'd like to percolate. We could talk a little bit about it at the full board if there's time, and then think about it and come to another meeting about it. That's maybe more specifically about it if you want.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I think we'll wait. Susan, you good with that? I got a nod from Susan. I know Alice is await as well. All right. So
Can I ask a question? Wait, can I suggest something?
Sure.
Betty, you're really good at these resolutions. And would it be possible if you started it, then bounced it to Tammy and Pat, and then we can all add and work at it and be prepared. I think that having worked for a government agency now for 3 years, they're so unstable. And if we're prepared, you don't have to do it all. You just throw it all in there, and then we'll slowly massage it. But you're so good at it, Betty. Want to start?
So I'm good with all of that. Here's what I'd love to do. I'd love Vicky and Jason to send me text about occupancy load, please.
Yep, I'll send you that.
Health and safety from the two of you.
Yep.
And then Betty's, if you would take a look at the public law right now about bathroom usage for the public, that would be great. Pat, we're going to look, and Mimi and I are going to look at some of the other things about footprint. And then I'm going to ask somebody else to take a look at, we'll see if we can get the legislation. I'll ask Lucian to see if he has the last copy of whatever draft was publicly released that we can circulate. But we definitely need to move fairly quick on this, because I know at the rate that Mayor Adams works in the city of Yes, and the fact that state budget and other budgets, which are somewhat tied into this, are next month, we need to be moving quickly on this. All right. So the goal would be by April 4th for people to send thoughts in writing so we can join it into a draft resolution that we'll share for the quote working group, and we'll get ready for next month's exec. All right, everybody. That was awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you very, very much for all the work on that. And then either Betty or Jess, I'm not sure who's presenting for Council Intro 501A. Whoever it is, take it away.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep, you're up.
Yeah, I'm happy to present. So if you all remember, a couple months ago, we passed a resolution supporting the legislation authorizing citizen reporting of hazardous parking violations. Obviously, there was a lot of debate that went into it, but we ended up supporting it without taking a position on the financial incentive, the financial award to the filer of the complaint. So after we passed that resolution, the city council did in fact reintroduce that legislation in substantially the same form that it was already in when it was previously introduced. But a couple weeks ago, it was or not a couple weeks ago, I guess it was, when was it? I don't know exactly when it was. It was, oh yes, it was a couple weeks ago, March 3rd. A amended version of the legislation was introduced that changed a lot of the key provisions. And I can actually put this up, the resolution that we have, so that we can go through it.
Lucian, can you let him share screen, please?
I should be able to, right? Here we go. Can you see it?
You're on.
Cool. So here we are. These are the key changes in the amended legislation. So the big one is that it no longer
Make it bigger,
entitles-
please.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'll make it bigger. That better? Well, not
Pat,
perfect,
if
but
you're
yeah.
also if you're on an iPad or a laptop, there should be above where you see viewing Jess Coleman's application, two number, a plus and a minus sign next to hit plus, and that will zoom you in on your own individual device.
Okay, so the big change is that it no longer entitles the successful filer to the 25% of any fines that are collected. That was something that a lot of people at this board took issue with. Other changes are that it will require people to take a digital training course before they're eligible to file a complaint. It will require that filers have a New York State driver's license or other New York State identification. It requires the Department of Transportation to install signage in the area, alerting people that enforcement is available in that area. It requires that a car be unoccupied. This appears to be in response to fears that it might cause, conflict between people if they're in the vehicle. And it also requires the Department of Transportation to create a mobile app for reporting. So the motivation for this resolution is that a couple of these changes, we think, and a lot of transportation activists are concerned, is going to basically gut the purpose of this law altogether. And the real ones that we narrowed in on are the digital training course and the requirement that the car be unoccupied. With the digital training course, I think it's just practical if you think about it. Almost no one's going to take a digital training course. People are busy. They're not going to sit and go through a course just to file a complaint. They're going to forget about it, and they're not going to go ahead and file it. The requirement that the car be unoccupied, we understand fears that people could get into conflict if they're sitting in the car. But there are already existing programs for idling trucks. There's an existing program for illegally parked taxis, and there really have been no reports of widespread violence or conflict. So that's one that also could really cut into the purpose of this law, because let's face it, a lot of the time people are sitting in their cars when they're illegally parked, and that would just be a gaping loophole in this law. So if you remember what I had to say about this, that I'm also not happy about getting rid of the financial incentive, but we've already spoken on that. We're not trying to relitigate that. This is really, I'll go down to the therefore be it resolved. This is really focused on just these three provisions in the amended legislation that, if implemented, we think would basically reduce this to nothing. So this is a limited resolution just calling on our council member and the city council to remove the three requirements: the requirement for the digital training course, the requirement that the car be unoccupied, and the provision that I should have mentioned before, requiring the Department of Transportation to install signage. That one just seems unnecessary. Why are we trying to alert people that they can get in trouble, and that then they'll know that in other places where it's not available, that they can just park illegally. So there's no reason to do that. So again, a limited resolution. We're not trying to relitigate the issue. We're already on record supporting this legislation. So this is just to reiterate our support for what was already introduced and what we already passed. So happy to answer any questions.
All right, I see Mimi has her hand up. We'll start with Mimi first, and then again, if you're in the public and you would like to opine at all, it's *3 on your phone. All right, go Mimi.
Hey, so I feel that in addition to the three items that you marked as something that would, make the law less useful, is that requirement for an app, a mobile app. Mobile apps cost millions of dollars. And I feel like it specifically being an app, I think that's way too specific. I feel like there could be like a text service where you send a picture and then it asks you specific questions for reporting, which can, it seems like app is a little too specific, and it would take a really long time for them to make it. So, but I don't really know how, you know what I mean? Like it feels difficult to say, like, we don't want the app, but having.
How about web access?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea.
Sort of like broad way of reporting, like a text type thing or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we can use.
Something to say.
I think we can use our experience with 311, because the opportunities of what you can do on the 311 app are limited versus what you can do on 311 online. If that's an example of what you mean. So, and getting an app up and going might take another, God knows how many years by the city. Oops, sorry. Lucian, you're next, and then Betty, and then Pat.
Tammy, I was just gonna say exactly what you were saying. We've had 311 for more than almost 20 years, and the app is the worst, piece of garbage that I think a city of 8.5 million people could possibly produce. And the fact that half the functions of the app are to kick you over to the mobile version of the 311 website for filing 311. So it's like they're going to build an app that you have to use, and they're going to take a long time to do it. and in the end, they'll probably just kick you over to the mobile version of a website to file your evidence anyway. So you know, I think that Mimi and you are 100% right that it's a time wasting tactic. It is a resource wasting tactic, and it does nothing to do anything that supports street safety or placard corruption in any way.
Betty, thank you, Lucian. Betty, and then Pat.
I want to go one more on what Lucian just said as well. Besides, and there have been lots of comments out there with, you mean, oh, create another 311? That seems like a waste. But the reality is the programs that Jess was just talking about, whether you're reporting a TLC vehicle for doing one of these illegal activities as a citizen, or whether you're reporting anything else in they use 311 as well. So one, why do you need a course to learn how to do 311? Because you don't for anything else. So it's sort of ridiculous this law would ask it. But two, then work on 311 because it's already being used for two other laws that are citizen reporting. So it makes no sense to be inconsistent with other laws.
I just want to clarify for the citizen reporting for idling. It goes a little bit beyond the 311, but I mean it's similar kind of interface. But you know, the video has to be a certain duration. The filer has to be able to answer certain questions because ultimately it gets referred to oath, and it needs to stand up to a defense. You know, any kind of defense for the person who's been accused. So I think it's, you know, there are certain things that they have to do for it to stand up in court, and so for that reason they need to be clear about what needs to be captured. But I think that there hasn't been an issue for that for emissions reporting, or I'm sorry, idling reporting, and there's nothing that really speaks to a need for this, like some training course for street safety violations.
And I'm just going to chime in for the old folks. We understand how to use 311. You come up with an app and it's a whole other ball game. And if you just need to take a picture of the person and get their license plate that they're sitting and it be time stamped, you know, that they're sitting in a bike lane or in a bus lane, that's easy for us to do. But, you know, when you start adding other things, as well as me saying that it costs millions of dollars, just keep it simple. We already have 311. So add a couple more operators to 311 to handle these calls.
Okay, I think I got Pat, I got Lucian. Anybody else have any comments on this? Provision about mobile app versus web. Yep. Okay, seeing no hands, let's do a vote. Cameras on for votes, please.
Just one other thing. And perpetuates the inequalities that exist amongst, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Just want to ask if you could take down that screen so I can see everybody
Yes.
in the gallery view. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right, so right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need one more.
I've got Wendy, who would be for EPC if she can get a camera on, and Trisha for youth and ed. I got Jason. Awesome.
Still at 7.
Mhm. Wendy, I know
you're for Wendy.
Yeah, I know Wendy's there. She's there. She's traveling. I mean, can't really see her, but her camera's
Oh,
on.
because you need a dome light.
What about Susan?
Susan's there. I
Susan,
see Susan.
yeah. I can't double count Susan and Francis though.
5, 6, 7, 8. How many do I need?
You need 8, but I have Tammy,
I got
Pat,
me,
Betty,
Susan.
Mimi, Jason, Patrick, Susan.
So, and I got Wendy. You can't see her, but her camera's on. You can tell because it's a black screen.
Okay.
I could have somebody cover for Youth and Ed for Trisha. Is anybody else on Youth and Ed? Jess, are you on Youth and Ed?
I'm not.
Are you on EPC?
Okay. I mean,
No.
Wendy's there. Wendy, yeah. All right.
She's there. All right. So I'm going to say that we all vote, and I'm going to assume affirmation of yes. Are there any abstentions? Hearing no abstentions, are there any recusals? We squeaked it by with quorum. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And thank you, Wendy, for having your camera on while driving in a
Yeah, we see you, Wendy. We see you. Don't worry.
Just waving in the dark. All right. Committee reports is going to be as quick as it possibly can because I don't need a report. I just need to know if you're going to light my hair on fire at the full board. If so, if you're going to light the hair on fire and it's controversial, then certainly do let us know. Susan, you're first.
And then I'm going to go.
Okay.
But I just want everybody to please read the resolution on 86 Warren Street on the hotel. It was a big compromise, blah, 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 blah. The hotel people agreed. The community had been very upset about it. I just want to make sure everybody reads it. That's all. The rest of the stuff is pretty self-explanatory.
Thank you, Susan. Vicky, you're next.
I'm off. Goodbye.
Good night.
Hi, Susan. No, I'm sorry. I can't lower my hand. I don't know why.
That's okay. No sweat. I don't think anybody that I know, Jess or Betty, did you have anything hyper controversial this month?
No, 2 resolutions, both passed unanimously.
Okay.
Surprisingly, no.
Patrick, I'm sorry to tell you, you're going to be wicked busy in April. Just saying. So.
What we get for taking a month off.
Yeah, that's what you get. And with that note, I thank everybody. I'm calling the meeting adjourned at 7:56. Boom. It was really robust. I really appreciate everybody's time and attention. And if you know people who are good for the community board, please ask them to apply. The